Tonight's meeting to order. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Sonny, I know you've had a busy day filling in for Rachel, so I'm going to take roll tonight. Durfler, present. Sprick.
Here.
Akamo.
Here.
Ferraro. Carver.
Present.
Norris.
Present.
Zavala. Tafoya.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to make an announcement that an executive session was held on Monday, August 7th at 6:30 PM to discuss legal matters with the solicitor. Council, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion made.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, any council discussion? If you can.
I'm going to move that we strike, number 11, I considered the cancellation of tonight's meeting, unless y'all want to go on.
Okay, there's a motion to remove the cancellation of tonight's meeting.
Second.
Is there, okay, a second, any council discussion? Although Kyle asked me about this today and I said, we'll just not take any action on it, but action on it. But then I thought if we keep it on the agenda, we technically could vote to cancel the meeting. So I like this. This is clear. So all in favor of that amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any other discussion on the agenda? All in favor of approving the agenda amendments? Agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. So now we will move on to public comments, suggestions by residents. And as always, please be respectful and keep your comments to roughly 3 minutes.
Hello, Nick Perigo, 812 South Walnut Street, Kennett Square. Maybe I'll start off with a public service announcement. My Aunt Janice Madonna, you may know, she had a bad fire down at her place. I'm told it was because of batteries in her junk drawer touching. So I Googled this and it's a thing. So I immediately went home, like I have hundreds of them, right? With knives or maybe scissors in there and screwdrivers. But I guess it's a thing. If your batteries touch and the conditions are right, that's what started her fire. So of course I went home, took all that, went to Amazon, ordered a battery case, but Chief may even know more about it, but apparently that's how it started. So be careful with your batteries. Anyway, YMCA, Bob was kind enough to tell me that you guys might discuss it. And Bob and I have talked from time to time. And one of Bob's concerns, at least, was, we don't know that we may have the resources financially or otherwise to take over. So he was a little concerned about that. And I understand that. One of the discussions I had with Bob was with a quick Google search, I immediately found organizations that will run these pools. They do it for hotels and condominiums and the like. So they're there throughout the country. But then, Bob, I got to thinking about your comment, the resource. Maybe we do have the resources. I don't know. Maybe we do. When you think about Greenwood Swim Club and some of these other swim clubs, these are just small organizations that find a way to run it themselves. Maybe we can bring it back and run it as a community. I would like to think that in 2023, we have more organizations available locally than we did back in 2000, 2001, more than just the Kennett Area Park and Rec. So I asked us to really consider that avenue as well, that we could run it ourselves again, and to look into the finances and look into what it needs to be done. And maybe we can raise money and so on and so forth. But I'm not giving up this battle. I feel really strongly about it. I understand that the season is over, right? I get that, but I don't want it to happen again. I just truly believe that if we don't take action on this, then precedents will be on their side and not ours. And right now, I will argue heavily that was again, I'm repeating myself from last meeting, but that was the spirit and the intent of that law, to be open up to the community. So I look forward to you guys work, and I'd be happy to work with it. I did, and I'll end by Bob did ask me to, and I haven't yet. I said it'll take me a little bit to call a few of these organizations and see how that works, what they charge, on and on. I haven't done that yet, but let's keep the ball moving, if you will, and I'm happy to help out. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Perigo.
John Thomas, 406 South Broad Street. I have to agree with Nikki on that one part. I think it's, we could get the Rotary clubs, Masonic Lodge, a lot of those guys, and ask them if they want to do a community thing. We'll probably have a whole winter to work on this. Get some of these organizations to even volunteer, lifeguards, run the place. You know, anything to help do it for the community. They're all community organizations. They all try to help the community. Give them an opportunity, say, hey, you know, it's gonna be, the borough will help as much as we can, but we're financially strapped. What can you guys do? The other thing is, I'd like to congratulate Carrie for getting a job in Oxford. I'm sorely disappointed she's missing from here. We didn't always see eye to eye, but she stood her ground with me many times about things. And she was very good, and I can't understand why she's not here. And she got a full-time job very quickly. And wait a minute, I have a senior moment here, man. I'm thinking of the other thing I wanted to say. Well, I'm gonna forget about it for now, but yes, I just thought of it. I would like to volunteer to borrow a borough truck for 15 minutes and a chainsaw. And I will take care of the two problem bushes that I been complaining about for 4 or 5 months that are gonna cause an accident. Obviously, I can be there and back and cut the bushes down in 5 minutes and be back to the borough building, and I'll waive all of my responsibilities. But if you guys can, I talked to the mayor, talked to the borough president, I talked to all council, I talked to the police chief, I talked to everybody. Everybody's gonna do it. Now that thing up there on the alley up there is open. That makes that alley, Church Alley, more dangerous when cars are coming down there, and it's a one-way alley. I was up there at night, I was up there yesterday, and obviously we can't get somebody, and the bush is on borough property unless you go into settlement. It's the borough's bush and all the weeds that are coming out off of the borough property. So if you can't do it, I'll do it. And I'm 75 and a little gimpy, but I'll get her done in 15 minutes if you want me to.
Thanks.
My name's Michael Snyder. I live at 318 Marshall Street. I've been a resident in Kennett Square since 1993. And I've actually worked here in town from 1981 and through 2009. Just not many people know me, but I've been around. I have a couple talking points. First of all is the wildlife issues and problems in town. And of course, you probably already heard about the elusive fox, mangy fox, and groundhog, squirrel, skunk, opossums. Back in 2003, I saw a lot of that in my backyard as a result of development at the end of Marshall and Mulberry Street. I just told everyone that all the wildlife packed up their bags and moved in my backyard. But more recently is a deer problem in town. I think that's I think you need to listen because it's a pretty far reaching problem, or it could become a real major problem or issue. I had a visitor to my garden the past month, and it's obviously a deer. I did not see it, but the scat is in the yard and the hoof prints are in the garden. Now, I've had to go out at my own expense and purchase deer deterrent and take other measures to try to keep it away, but I'm sure it's roaming around town. My neighbor has reported seeing it in the back alley and other things. Well, so I think this by and large is a result of the overdevelopment in the border of our beautiful town, being East Marlborough, Kennett Township, and New Garden Township. We all know what's going on, so there's no doubt that it's pushing the wildlife around. So if you think about a deer as being harmless, well, I've seen a deer run out into a 10K run and knock somebody over. It's pretty harmless. The deer was confused. It can happen. So case in point, I live 3 blocks away from the center of town. Imagine on a third Thursday, a deer running through the middle of town, running into somebody, knocking them over, or even running inside a store. You've seen it on TV. So I think someone needs to take a little bit of heed. I know there's a lot of things going on, but a small problem can become a seemingly large or big problem and also a liability. So I think that's just one thing I wanted to bring up. It's just something I've never really imagined having to face living 3 blocks from the center of town, but I have pictures of the scat, I have pictures of the tracks, and I have pictures of the damage to my garden. I mean, I'm an avid vegetable gardener and never saw anything like that. I would, maybe out in the township or in the middle of the country, that's to be given. And I guess that leads me into about the overdevelopment in the area. We all know where it's going on, and it's even in town is what's down on West State Street at the edge of the borough. So I just am really curious as to what type of studies are being conducted through all this development, the impact to our beautiful little town, the traffic concerns, everything as a result of all the development. We're basically encased with developments all the way around the town. I mean, you can't look in one direction and see it. So this is, and it's happening so quickly that, you know, are we opening our eyes to see what's the real impact of that? I really would like to challenge you all and just maybe not challenge, but just kind of ask you politely to see what kind of studies are being conducted. What's the plan? What's the traffic study, and so on and so forth. I mean, we're 1 square mile there, like, I don't know, you calculate it, it's 20 square miles around us or whatever it is. And then the last point I wanted to make without taking up much time here was I just kind of would like to know more about what's coming up for next year's budget and what type of public input or interaction would be taking place. I know we all got nailed with a really big increase last year. So I'm really interested in knowing where are you planning on saving? You know, everybody has to make cuts somewhere. What are the inefficiencies? Where are the opportunities we could take to kind of, you know, calm the raising of taxes? And ultimately, a lot of it falls on the residents. And like I said, I've been here a long time, and you know, I've never had to face such a large increase in taxes. And and if you compare our taxes to what the county taxes are, I mean, the county taxes have been pretty stable. They haven't jumped up that much over the past 15 years or so. Thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to some responses.
Thank you, Mr.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roxanne Pachirasel. I live on 113 Marshall Street, so we're neighbors. I'm here today to talk about a growing concern in town about the disappearance of trees. This is something that has come up in conversations with locals, also on Facebook. So we all know about the benefits of having trees in towns, such as improving the air quality, keeping the temperature down, and of course, keeping our town beautiful, keeping its charm. A lot of people noticed the efforts made by the new library to, add new trees on Willow Street. And it's a beautiful effort. Everybody loves it. The concern, though, is more about the segment between Willow Street and the old library. We have noticed that there are between 5 and 7 trees missing. So you still have the spots available where the old trees used to be, but these spots are gone. So the question is, was permission granted? Are these trees going to be replaced? Another thing has come up about St. Patrick's Church. Everybody's noticed that the 3 beautiful trees, old, healthy trees in front of St. Patrick's are gone. And the rumor has it that, and I don't know, I cannot verify it, but that the tree commission recommended to keep the trees, and that the expertise of the tree commission was actually overridden by one of the people here on the council. And I have no proof of this, but so then there is a question here about the tree committee. There are more trees missing here and there. We've noticed stumps, for example, between State and Cypress. We've also noticed how the old library is now deprived of all of its beautiful trees. 3 of them, 3 big, larger trees, and then all of the birch trees and bushes around. And so we have 2 questions for you. And here I'm in touch with a few residents. One of the questions is, are the missing trees going to be replaced in town? And the other question is the council, are you guys committed to working on a healthy and a beautiful environment? Okay, thank you. Yes.
Russell, the one thing I will address is the St. Pat's.
Okay,
So that was, we did overturn the Shade Commission after
Okay.
a lot of discussion with the safety versus the trees that were existing there. But St. Pat's did have a replacement plan.
okay, great.
And we had a lot of discussion that night that we felt very comfortable with, that those trees will eventually, we may not see what they grow to be.
Right,
But there is a replacement.
but they will be
plan in place.
replaced. Okay,
As far as the old library, Kyle, do you know of any?
Yeah, so it didn't require permission because it was off of our borough right of way.
okay,
But I suspect we'll be talking with them when they go through their design process.
okay.
But I can speak on behalf of council that this is absolutely something that is concerning as well. And I saw the Facebook post, and it does look very bare right now,
Right,
but we are definitely committed to shade trees in the borough.
okay. Thank you so much.
And there are a number of spots where the trees were, but someone took them down probably because they were old or beat up on State Street that really need to be replanted.
Right. Okay, thank you so
for your
much.
time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandy D'Antonio, 220 North Broad Street, and I just have a couple questions. I know the Borough Building was closed yesterday. Did they not have power? Is that why they were closed?
We lost power for a while. We then got it back, but we never got back internet. And it was actually closed. Yeah, it was yesterday. So people were more productive at home because a lot of what we do is internet based.
Well, I just was wondering because some people apply for permits and
Yep.
I mean, it's,
So we notified, we sent it out through our website and social
Right.
media and I believe even a text alert. So we had to deal with it.
I got an email, so. But Monday, I was still coming to the meeting because the storm was nasty, but it was over by the time the meeting. I didn't get notice that the meeting was canceled until 16 minutes after 7. That's when my email came through, which I thought was a little late. Now, neighbors of mine drove down from the beach to attend the meeting, and I get it. Believe me, I didn't want to come out either, so, but I just thought
Well,
that
and
it should have
actually-
been
Oh, sorry.
canceled sooner. That's all.
One of the things was when we lost power, that we were no longer ADA compliant and we can't have a meeting where we're not. And so that just happened at that
Well, I get that. I just thought maybe
Yep.
earlier it would be canceled. That's all.
Yep.
I'm just expressing my
Yep, yep,
concerns
yeah,
since I've
no,
been
yeah, I'm
attending
just letting you know
meetings.
why it was that last minute, because had the
Yeah.
power knockdown out, we probably would have continued with it.
And I did assume that maybe power was out because I know Stenning Hills had an issue and other people. So, okay, so there were a couple questions I had. Then I have a question. Did the borough incur any cost when the new apartment building at, by Rite Aid at State and Mill Road? Did they incur any cost when the water main broke and with the gas leak? Because if they did, I would hope that the borough gets reimbursed for the time that the employees had to spend there.
Rob, do you want to?
I mean, it's. Okay, because it has been an inconvenience to a lot of people. I don't live at that end of town, but. Okay, and then I have noticed a lot of residences that have not been mowing their yards regularly. One, and I haven't been by there, I haven't walked by there, but the library, the old library building was an eyesore with the grass. Didn't know whose responsibility that was at that time, but people were making comments about the grass. And I've noticed that at certain residences. And I thought there was supposed to be fines for that. And I noticed that some cars have been parking on their yards. And I don't give addresses, but anyway, I know the ticket guy's been really good. I don't know whose responsibility it is to check those things out. And then my other question is there any update on the Franklin building or the old Genesis building? Since they're going to be vacant.
No change since we met last month, as far as I know. Have you heard anything else?
No
Okay.
update. No.
I'm just hoping we need tax revenue.
I know. Oh, I know.
That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. D'Antonio.
Ken Edwards, 412 Meredith Street. I did come over here and Sonny was very gracious when he told me, no power, no work. But as far as money goes and as far as trees and power go, I live in a very unique situation. When we have a bad storm, like we had Monday, historically guaranteed, my lights will flicker 3 times. And that's it. Today, this time, I lucked out. Had power, but the rest of y'all didn't. But a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned to Rachel about some very old oak trees across the street from me. I was worried because they're dying from the inside out. And you can tell because the bark is starting to fall off. And you know, the trees aren't getting the water when you start seeing the roots at the ground level coming above the grass. 2 of them came down Monday night. Luckily, there was no serious damage to anybody, but people wonder why trees are taken down. That's one of the reasons. But unfortunately, there's no way unless you bore a hole into the tree to determine whether it is healthy or it's sick. And I know people told me, well, see that dark stuff? That was from lightning. It was not lightning. Those 2 trees came down because of the straight line winds that came in when that front passed through here. Well, you can stand outside on your porch, see the rain come down, and all of a sudden it looks like fog appeared. That's straight line winds. And those winds can go anywhere on the average. The average, they say, is 100 to 120 miles an hour. They come straight down the front, they get near the ground, and they go that way. And that's why the National Weather Service investigates those things to determine whether they're tornadoes or not. But my neighbors were lucky because those two trees, well, one's completely down, the one has still got some junk hanging up there. And I blame that on the way they were pruned in the town. Because when Ashland came through last year, I think it was, or the year before, and pruned them off the electric wires and the lower level wires, they pruned them to the trunk of the tree and nothing on the backside. So when those straight line winds came through, just picture standing in the street and having a car hit you at 100 miles an hour. That's what it was. So trees, it was, do we have anybody that checks on trees to make sure they're good? Because I'm surprised that some of the other tall trees that are 60, 80 feet tall are still standing because of those winds. And we still had a flood, as usual.
Sean Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square. I'm happy some of the folks that are here are speaking up and really happy that they can say so calm. Because I've been here for a number of times, and the same things you were saying, other people have been saying it myself too, when we've been ignored. To have a healthy town, to develop it, and particularly 1 square mile, you have to, it's based on home ownership. We've now reached a level in this town where we have to worry about the rental properties being more than home ownership. That encourages interactions, intimacy between people and a healthy town center, which we don't have. Because a healthy town center has a diverse population based on what lives here, and it circumvents there. There's activities to take them there. And for about 12, 15, maybe even 20 years, we've had a council working counterproductive of our public. And that's what we have here now. And we had that over those years, counterproductive. I want to say that you're looking at the development in the town. I hear you talking about it, and we fought that. There's people here who fought it, and I fought it hard. State Street. No one knew what the site plan was going to be for that because it was never introduced here publicly. And I've never been in this council, in the old councils, when people knew about building, when the men had different types of jobs and expertise that knew about construction, some sciences, and they put all their brains together. It wasn't about making a dollar. It was about what's good for Kennett. Number one, our borough council, I've never seen so much absenteeism. Disgraceful. Those men were rarely absent from a council meeting, ever. And I've seen more absentee in this last year than I even want to see, and the same people over and over. You can't keep your finger on the pulse when you're not here. I want to talk about State Street. Didn't see the footprint. Didn't even see people down there checking it out, our engineer, and I asked that when they opened it up and they didn't brace the walls and the dirt exposed to clear up to State Street. I knew that was a hazard. And I'm not a rocket scientist or an expertise in architecture or anything, or an engineer. When I pull up the Mill Road, which is one of my common roads to come out, and Washington, there's no sight distance from Mill Road. You can now get hurt. Future accidents are waiting to happen because you have to pull out to see, and you don't even have 20 feet of sight distance for vehicular traffic or pedestrian. And someone coming through that light is going to hurt somebody. And that can't blame these people because they weren't the people to put that ideal in the head of somebody. But they didn't have the setbacks that they should have been required on any angle from that building, whether it's Washington Street, State Street, or Mill Road. Violated everything. And now some people may have to pay the cost. Also, the fact is that place says pet friendly. It shouldn't. And if you like animals, fine. And I don't hate animals, but we don't have room for another animal in this town. Talking about a deer, the fox that runs behind the Catholic Church for the last 15 years, he got a direct trail where he goes. But you got to talk about these dogs. If these people don't own green, they can't have a dog. You know how many apartments are going in that place? They don't have green, meaning grass. They don't have a yard. I own a corner property and I had a hell of a fight. Well, people just don't have them do that here. Move on, please. Their arrogance told them they were allowed to. But my persistence and rejection lets them know, no, you can't. How many dogs are going to be in that place? And you don't have a place for them to go. We don't have a place in this town. We have dogs everywhere. Want to move on to the other one. Catholic Church development was never supposed to use the property that it's using. There's a contract that they can't do anything with that for a certain number of years. And what they got that property for was to build a school. Soon as they came here and got the permission and I was here, the school was closed. And they've owned that property and had knocked down houses. That is a R1 property. That is a R1 block. And we don't want to see anything in it but an R1. Recently, the Santora House, which is on the corner of Lafayette and Magnolia, has sold for an extremely high price. And there must have been 6 families up in that place. I don't know who they were, but I was watching. There was no maintenance on the property. The trees just have a nasty muck that's on the ground when you drive, and it was there all the time since it's sold. Never there before, because I knew the family, the Cole family, I think their names were. So many strollers were in front of that house. So many bicycles. Somebody better get on to this, because you just can't start doing stuff because you feel it's good. Because you're scratching somebody else's back. Who was in that house that's not there now? Somebody better investigate. I stopped and seen some neighbors. They said, we're wondering about it too, Charlotte. Okay? Lafayette Street is an R1 in that block. It has always been and always will be. We can't give the Catholic Church another thing. And I'm not saying it because they're Catholic. We just can't give stuff away. The alley gave that to them too. Then I want to get back to the fact that when you have construction, you're supposed to have water trucks. Haven't seen one. When you got that much dirt, dust, and stuff coming into a vicinity, they're supposed to take a water truck and wash the streets down every so many hours. That hasn't happened. Gravel and dirt just building up in a big oil type of thing down there now. When I drove today, I said, what might some of that have spilled down by the laundromat of Washington? Somebody better get on the ball and get them to get them water trucks at it. We can no longer, of course, I'm going to have some struts replaced on my car, but we can no longer drive over those streets without requiring them to fix them right. State Street isn't ridiculous. You can't even drive it down on that section. It's so hump and bumped. And then I see they just cut up Washington. Besides, they never have correct markings for giving directions where traffic is going in enough time that could have caused an accident. That'll remind you about before. Now I'm going to leave that alone because you should have seen it yourself. I shouldn't have to tell you. Sorry for my asthma. But the pool, it's ours. It's always been ours. It was put up because of the civil rights movement. What come out of this town through the Kennett Area Joint Action Committee. When they had a temporary pool down in the Anson B. Nixon Park, and they saw the popularity of it, and they seen it could bring our community together, we built that complex that nobody else in the county has. Mr. Lewis ran it, and a man from Westchester University named Jack Lewin ran it well all those years. Mr. Lewis, it was reported, told someone recently, a good source who we had checking it out, that he was just tapped on the shoulder and said he wouldn't be needed again. They turned it over to the Y. Talked to him extensively about the pool, what it needed and didn't need. There was nothing wrong with that pool. Nothing. And he is a very accomplished man in this community, and was a local teacher here. And Jack Wintermute is a phys ed from Westchester University. What else would you want? They ran that. Get it back. Put the Y out there. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. It doesn't belong to them. And anybody on that board who sits here should have their mouth shut, because it's a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest not only goes with change of money, but due of influence. Better look up the law. But I've heard it on both ends here from the council member and the solicitor that it doesn't. 3 times, and I did it purposely so I could hear it 3 times. So if you ever go to a bigger arena, they can explain it better to you. That pool belongs to us. The Y has no business telling us we can't use our own pool. Somebody here should have long made that motion and fought your peers to say, we want that pool back. You have to be off our property. They're going to run a summer program and they don't know if they'll open the pool. And a man came here with 400 signatures. Man, that was nice. That was outstanding. And you scoffed at him. That was a lot of signatures against us not having a pool. And then he said we open on the weekends. And that was after the fact. July was the hottest month of the year so far. Those 2 weeks ended around the 14th. And no kids didn't have no place to go. And I happened to talk to some kids that came to my house for a drink. Somebody needed a drink, so I gave 3 kids a drink. And I was talking to them. I said, why don't you go down to Y? They said, we don't go down there with little kids. They were middle schoolers. No place to go. Our garage is no longer uptown. We're going to be told it's down at the school. The garage deserves to be uptown. Kids don't want to stay in school all those extra hours, but they'll go someplace else if they have mentors and in the right kind of training.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
One more thing now, you're gonna give me a break.
You took 4 times.
That's all right.
You
These
took
people didn't
4
hear. These are
times
new
tonight.
people.
Let's leave room.
Why
for
didn't you
other-
have a
let's leave
generator?
room-
Why didn't you have a generator?
Let's leave room
Why
for
didn't you have
other
a
people.
generator for Monday?
Is there any other public?
Why didn't you
comment
have a
tonight?
generator for Monday? Because we spent enough money
Watson, thank
and
you.
wasted in this borough
Thank you.
$13 million for this building. But you're telling us we can't have a pool?
Thank you.
We have that, whatever that income tax crease is. And then the library came
Your
here.
point is
0.2 to
proven
rob us
quite-
more.
Your point
If
is
you're
proven.
saying
quite
we don't
well.
have a pool,
Thank
you
Ms.
better get the
Watson.
money back to the citizens
Thank you.
and quit giving it to the big people that you feel are more worthy than us. And it's
Thank
also
you.
partisan, what I'm seeing here.
Hello, everyone. Mike Kanji, 107 North Broad Street. I'll be quick, but wanted to just offer about the pool. You guys have heard enough, I think, from myself and others about the pool. We have a lot of community support wanting the pool back. What the Y has done thus far is not enough. And there doesn't seem to be any desire or action on their part to go any further. I saw the executive director, Nick Legere, a few weeks ago at the Y, just ran into him, and he was really proud of the fact that they've now opened the pool on the weekends. And I said, oh, okay, that's great. I read that. I saw that. He said, have you been there? I said, I have not, because I have 3 kids, 4 and under, and your baby pool's still not open. And that should be the easiest pool of all 3 of the pools to open, maintain, as well as guard. But they've chosen not to. And the reason that they don't have that pool open, not stated by him, but I can only infer that it doesn't help with the camps that they're running, because they're running it as a private swim club only for their campers, all of which are above the age that would even need a baby pool. So they have found no reason to open the baby pool. So by them making the gesture and saying that they've opened the pool on weekends for the community, it's really not the progress that we need, and it's not the resource that we deserve and that we really own. So I just want to come up here and say, I'd like to take the next step here with action from you guys. You guys have, I feel like, heard enough. And I just want to know, are we going to move forward or not with this topic as a council? And then I just want to offer my help and assembling other members of the community to work with you guys to get this pool back, because whether it is a pool management company or a community organization or a new entity that can open and run this pool, we have to get rid of the contract that we have with the YMCA, or we just have to hold them to the existing contract that we have, because the current contract says that it will be operated as a community pool. So they either need to hold up their end of the deal or we need to break the lease because they're not holding up their end of the lease. And I just want to be a resource, and I will bring others to the table to have conversations about how we can move forward with this. But I'd like to see some action on this. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Kanji. Any other public comment? All right, there being none, we'll move on to the reports and start with the president's report. First of all, regarding Monday, we had a smaller meeting and then we did have an executive session. So we were here when the storms hit. And I just want to thank all the first responders who were drawn in many different directions that night. And Rob and your team for what you've been doing not only just that but the water mains and just everything that's been happening. So a big shout out to all the individuals involved with that. Second thing I do, as many, if not all of you know, we did have a vote last month to leave the Regional Fire E&S Commission. And just so you know that over the last 3 weeks to a month, a small group has been meeting internally, a small working group, really getting our hands around the internal ducks in a row, if you will. Where are we? Where do we want to be? Looking at this, not just a reaction to cost, but also really looking at the all-inclusive nature of what fire, EMS, police, public safety looks like in the borough now and moving forward. So really getting our hands around all those components. And then we will start reaching out to providers for information, who to partner with, what direction we take, as well as the commission. So just looking forward to where those are moving. So that's where we're at right now on that. And that's the end of my report. And Mr. Norris, you're part of that working group too. Anything you just wanted to add as far as that?
No, I think.
Okay, I put you on the spot
Yep,
there.
no, not a problem.
All righty. Managers report.
Sure. So I'll go through first. Thank you to our first responders for everything you did over the last couple of days, as well as Sunny for doing a really good job with communications. The notifications everyone is getting are helpful. I'll try to go through and answer some of the questions that were raised. If you have any follow-ups, just feel free to catch me after the meeting or another time. In terms of the budget timeline, so we will bring a first draft of the budget here in public meeting in October. And then there are 2 public votes in November and December. At some point in there, we'll also have for lack of a better word, it's almost like a science fair. So we take up this room, we have a couple tables with different departments, and you can come in and talk to a department director and get very granular detail on any part of our budget. You can also schedule a time to come into the office and go through every single line item. No one has taken us up on that, but you can. Our budget is also fully online. So at any time you can go on our website and see every single line item of our budget, revenue and expenses going back, I believe either 4 or 5 years. That's always available. Then moving on, I will follow up on, there was a question of lawn mowing and maintenance. I will make sure someone checks on that. Let's see. So we do have engineers on site daily, maybe every other day at large construction sites. It was the library when that was happening. It is now with the apartment complex. So that is being monitored daily. That's not something that's allowed to just happen on its own. Everyone will start to see over the next 2 months a lot of road construction. That's what the majority of those tax funds went to. So you'll start to see roads being repaved, and just to reiterate, we are doing roads based on a private third-party objective engineer's assessment of road condition. So this is not, I have a friend who lives on this street, that's why we're paving it. It is a objective study that we probably should get on our website. And then there has been some discussion about the price of this building. The building was $10 million. It was not 13. We are then investing money into it with the police station that with a $2 million grant from the state, as well as some ARPA funding. So that kind of explains that. Okay, it's 10 million for the bond. And then lastly, I noticed, I think Nick, John, Charlotte, and Mike all brought up the pool issue. So at the end of our action items, one of our workshop items tonight is the pool. So we're going to talk about where we are, with the objective being some direction from council on what the next step is. So whether that's a negotiation with the YMCA, whether that's putting it out to bid, whether that's trying to figure it out internally, or maybe it's all three, that is being planned for discussion tonight.
Any questions for Kyle? Anything from the solicitor's office? No report tonight. Thank you. Chief Holdsworth.
I did submit an electronic report for the July 23 activity. There's any questions about that? Two additional things I think all about August. On August 1st, we had our community national coming out event out here in the Borough parking lot. It's a great collaborative event between our police department and council department.
Kennett Fire Company, there we go. Longwood Fire Company, Pomar Lynn. We had many of our local businesses and service entities such as CAX, Casa Guanajuato was there. It was a really, really nice event. A lot of great communication, a lot of good conversation took place, a lot of children were present, and really had a lot of great interactions with the police departments. So that was just a phenomenal event, and we're going to actually work on continuing to build on the success of this next year. Another significant event that we had was an active threat exercise that we initiated with Kennett Consolidated School District. We held that on August 3rd. A lot of community notification went out about it to let people know what was going on and not be overly concerned that this was just a training exercise. It was an active shooter training situation scenario. So the school district could see how we have been working together for about 3.5 years now, working on the school's safety and security protocols to see how all the changes that we have helped them implement could be put into place in a real life situation. It involved our county exercise training team, COM1, and the incident command trailer came out for it. All of our fire companies, again, were participated in this as if, we were removing victims, after the incident, after the situation was quelled. And it was just, again, an incredible collaborative effort that gave us the opportunity to see how well our protocols actually worked, assure us that things that we put into place actually are life-saving measures and will reduce the chances of something like this happening or the severity of it if it ever did happen. God hopes it not. But it was a great effort from the school district to get ahead and see where we are and where improvements could be done. And it was very beneficial. We're going to be taking the data that we've learned from this and do a fall presentation with the school district and the police department to see how we can implement the improvements that might be needed, and any suggested changes going forward. And we will continue this type of training going forward into next year, specifically how the school will then move forward in an incident like this for unification and of any of the children that are dismissed like this from the school. So again, very, very wonderful event. I will give props. He's not here tonight, Lieutenant Rongus. I put him in charge of the event for the command staff that day. I actually took a sort of floating role throughout the school so I could evaluate not only our response of individual officers, but the total law enforcement response. And I will say that we got some significant kudos from our county partners as to how quickly we were able to neutralize this threat that took place that morning. So it was just a great experience overall.
Any questions? For Chief, before it happened, I know I had asked you what the plan was for any individuals that thought that something actually was happening. And if those calls would get routed and it would be addressed. Were there any calls saying there is a shooting at the school? I was just seeing how effective the communication was.
So there wasn't actual threats of that because the activity that was going on in the school, you couldn't hear.
Okay.
But there was cause of concern of, you know, the massive amount of emergency equipment that was there.
Okay.
That was quickly, you know, taken care of by the county person.
Steve, do you think if the street was closed like it was earlier this week, that would have impacted the drill?
No, we'd still work around it. Now, if there was something more significant to, say, Union Street, yeah, it would certainly impact it. But in a real life event, we will be shutting all the streets around the district if something like that took place anyhow. Sir.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Brady, anything from the fire company? Yeah.
So with one way on a fire fire, you only get 10 lower parties. We had volunteers for research in the firehouse, which is free volunteers. We're on the street on the school. I think we pretty much take that to the water, we were on the school.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to the committees. I'll start with personnel. Personnel met and we did review Sunny's job description, and that's going to be discussed tonight at an action item. Our personnel manual is pretty close to final. That is a big chunk, and we're just tweaking a couple more things before we send that out for some very exciting bedtime reading for council. Also, Mr. Gerber and team drafted an electronic communications policy that we're tightening up, and that's going to be included. We're also going to be including a social media policy. So that's the things that personnel worked on at the last meeting. Coming up, we will be working on the borough manager contract for the next 2 years. So more to follow on that. Finance.
Finance Committee met on July 20th, briefly reviewed the year-to-date budget. We're in fine shape. We're on target. We're also watching, the earned income tax and the local services tax. Those have been coming a little bit lower. They're trending down a little bit. It's not going to affect this year, but we're kind of watching it because the impact is from people working from home aren't paying those taxes necessarily in the borough as they had in the past. So it's a trend we're aware of and watching. All the departments are in good shape. Admin's a little bit higher, but it's primarily from the communications, which we're happy to spend on within reason. parking fund is up dramatically. It's averaging, the garage is averaging 17,000, Joel, was it a month? I mean, it's really, the garage has really changed itself dramatically based on the policies put in place. We also looked at two firms to take a look at construction financing. When the police department gets going, we're going to use basically construction loan to be paid back through the RACP grant that we have. So we looked at a couple of terms. Del Val looks very promising. We also looked at a second draft of the capital plan, which is in pretty good shape, just about ready to come to the council. We also reviewed the nonprofit allocations, also considered asking the council to consider adding CACs into that list. It's a small list, but we think it's something the council might want to consider. And we're also certainly taking a hard look at what the impact of changing how fire and EMS are paid for in the borough, what that will do or could do to 2024 budget. Thank you.
Any questions from Mr. Parks? Mr. Tafoya, I'm going to put you on the spot because you are the Acola, the borough representative to Acola. Anything from the Advisory Commission on Latino Affairs that you wanted to report on? And I know I didn't prep you for this, so you're on the spot, sir.
On September. And it will be meeting on September 12th. So our last meeting was June 14th. There hasn't been pretty much anything until we'll hopefully see what brings new next meeting.
Okay.
There's no update.
Okay, great. I think that's all the committees you got represented. Are there any action items? It's been a slow month or so. All right, we will move on to the action items. First one, the cancellation tonight's meeting has been removed. We are having the meeting. Second, special events. So this was supposed to happen on Monday. This approval was supposed to happen on Monday because the Red Clay Park groundbreaking was tonight at 5 o'clock. So this is technically a retroactive approval, but Kyle, did you want to say anything about it or?
Yeah, it's a result of the cancellation. There was nothing overly interesting about it, so we decided to allow it to happen, hoping to get retroactive approval.
So since this is not just discussion, this is action items. If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to retroactively approve the special event for the Red Clay Park groundbreaking.
I'll move to approve the special event application for Red Clay Park groundbreaking.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The Mushroom Cap Half Marathon. Kyle, I think you had an update on this.
Yeah, their representatives weren't able to make it tonight. And there isn't necessarily a time crunch, so they asked that we delay this. I suppose if council doesn't have issues with it, you can move forward, but if you want to be able to have a discussion with them, you'd want to delay it.
It's the same event as last year from what it was outlined.
Is it the same?
Course remains the same this year. I met with the organizers to go over a couple suggestions for change from last year. There is one change that is not in the packet. She just actually sent it today again. That change is to close Broad Street from Cypress all the way down to South Street at 5 a.m. Because if I back up 2 years ago, the starting point was right on Broad Street in front of the building here. Last year, weeks leading up to it, they had to change the starting point to right in front of Hanks on Birch Street. We were able to previously just close the 600 block of South Broad Street so they could set up the starting lines beginning at 5 a.m. With it moving over onto Birch Street, it created a little bit of a traffic confusion. So my suggestion was we need to close all of Broad Street from Cypress down to allow for, for it to be safely done. So that's the only change as it pertains to the road closures that are listed on that. The very top one will just be a Broad Street from 5 a.m. So with that said, I have no issues with it. Same event as last year.
Is it the roll, like the streets roll?
As the runners come off, yeah. Being Union will, be one of the first ones to open back up first once the last runner gets off of it.
That was the only concern I had last year because I was a course marshal right at South Union and Magnolia. And lots of cars started coming up Magnolia much earlier in the process, so.
As the problem that we continually always have with events like this, barricades are put up about 1 block back from the point where you're at, back at the Center Street side, for example. It takes one person to move a barricade because they're not manned locations. The manned location is 1 block up where the actual runners are and the main traffic is. One person moves the barricade, 20 cars come. So we are trying to always keep somebody floating around, but it's a difficult situation with a race course this large. I don't even know technically, and Rob, you could probably answer this. We probably don't even have enough barricades to completely shut off something this size. So we make the best out of it.
So with that said, there's no rush, but if there's a motion, we can move forward with approving this with the change that Chief indicated.
I'll try it. Mr. President, I'll make the motion to approve the Mushroom Cap Half Marathon on November 4th, 2023.
For a second.
I second.
Council discussion.
Do we necessarily need to have the updates as discussed on the permit before we move forward with approving it?
It'll
So the
include it.
attachment actually was just sent to me today
Right.
and to Rachel as well, so she can update the packets, but I think the permit is pretty self-explanatory.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New Garden Memorial Church Family and Fun and Health Fair.
Chief, you want to take this one?
Sure. So this one came to public safety at our last meeting. It's a suggested community event, again, trying to touch on, the health impacts of COVID and people still being somewhat, distant and having lost some of those connections in an exceptional community like we have on East Linden Street. So this is to close down, or propose to close down Linden Street from the intersection of Elm Alley down to the intersection of Willow Street. So traffic and residents would still be able to get through and around the area. Anybody coming down Linden Street would be able to go down the alleyway behind the church, come back out on Willow Street, so it won't impact the residents that don't have outside parking besides what's in front of them. So we did not have any concerns with this from public safety, and actually are all for it.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve. There's a second.
Excellent.
Got it in there. Any council discussion? I think this looks like a great event. No others? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Chief, just keep rolling here. Civil Service Commission. So we're going to charge the Civil Service Commission to generate a certified hiring list for the hiring of one officer.
Yes, and this is not a creation of a new position. This is to backfill a position that has just become open. So we need the council to charge civil service to create that certified list for hiring based off of the eligibility list that they've already certified from back in November. We still have viable candidates on that list.
So if they certify, they give you that certified list, they've gone through all the stages and this would be an individual ready to be hired.
This is somebody that's met all the standards.
Is there a motion to charge the Civil Service Commission to generate a list for the hiring of one full-time police officer?
I will move to charge the Civil Service Commission to generate a certified hiring list for the hiring of one full-time police officer.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. They are charged. Public Works, consider the Terminal Way Sewer Project bid award. Mr. Moran.
Okay, the Terminal Way project consists of basically replacing a sewer line that goes from South Walnut over near the athletic fields. Actually goes between the apartments and down through Terminal Way through an industrial area. and actually goes and crosses the creek on just off of Birch. The reason for it is all the sewer flows on the northeast corner of the borough come through that area. It's getting close to capacity, so we're going to increase pipe size. We put it out to bid, and it was, the low bid was Alameda and Hudak. I don't have the papers in front of me, so I'm winging it. It's actually paid for by a grant from Chester County Community Development. They are supposed to approve the contract, so what council will be voting on is contingent on their approval. They were supposed to get back to us on Monday, but we haven't heard anything from them. But the cost is definitely under the budget for it. And even if we get hit with a couple contingencies on it, we'll still be in really good shape.
So Rob, contingency is what? And I just wanted to spell it out a little bit.
Chester County Community Development, they're the ones that gave us the grant. So they have to approve the contract.
Okay.
And like I said, they were supposed to get with us on Monday, but they haven't gotten back to us yet.
Any questions for Ron? If not, and the description is on the staff report, so acceptance of the contract for Almeida and Hudak contractors for Terminal Way contingent on the approval from the Chester County Community Development. And I don't need you to read that back. We've got it on tape. Is there a motion?
Motion made.
All right, there's a
Second.
council discussion. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
All right, Kyle, this one's all you. Consider excess office furniture disposal resolution for 600 South Broad Street.
Sure. The borough is actively trying to lease space of this building to offset our costs. This building is full of dividers, cubicles from when Genesis used it. Our professional broker that we hired has advised us that in today's market that actually detracts from the value of the building. As a local government, we're not able to dispose of assets without coming to council for approval. So you can appreciate we might have a leaseor who's interested in the space. We want to get rid of the furniture in order to make it more enticing for them. We would have to wait a month each time to come to council to get approval for disposing of literally a single desk. So what this is asking, it's a very narrow request, but we're asking council to give staff the authority to find people to take the furniture, to donate it where we can, to sell it where we can, to make the space more enticing to rent.
Questions from council?
Can we give local nonprofits sort of the first option? Can we give them 2 weeks to go through the building and take anything out? Because it might help. There's some great furniture, there's some crummy stuff, but for any nonprofit, it really might help them an awful lot.
Yes.
Okay.
That was basically.
Yeah, this doesn't mean that the borough manager can just throw out the stuff into the
Right.
trash. It's gotta.
Yeah, we can do that.
Does this resolution have any monetary maximum value of things that you can dispose of?
No, it doesn't. We're really looking for people to come and take these things.
I guess you said it's very narrow, like what are the limitations of how narrow it is and what exactly the authority is?
So limited to this building, limited to furniture. What we didn't want to do was say we can dispose of assets, right? Keep that wide. So that's the limitation there.
So it's office chairs, desks, ton of filing.
With the caveat that we've tasked our staff with making sure we have everything that we can use, so that we're not, double buying here, but yeah.
Any other clarifying questions? Entertain a motion to approve the resolution for. I'm just trying to think how I wanted to frame it. Resolution for disposing of excess office furniture. And other personal use. Thank you. That. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion from council? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consideration of forming a borough infrastructure committee.
Yeah, so the thinking here is that if we can push down the decision-making to a more local level, which is our committees, that gives people a better chance to engage with staff, to go through issues in detail. We do this pretty well for finance. We do it pretty well for public safety, for shade tree, for things like that. But infrastructure, for whatever reason, has been something of an afterthought. So it's been included with public safety. And that committee has done a good job, but it's a significant expenditure. It's where a large chunk of the tax increase went to. So we're trying to highlight it and put a little more emphasis on it. So that could include, your roads work. That could include what's going on at the sewer and water plant. And all of this is with the note that we will need volunteers to serve on the committee. So obviously, if you have an interest in that, we'll get something on our website that is a form for you to fill out to volunteer for that.
I'm assuming there will still be representation from Public Works on the Public Safety
Yes.
Committee.
Yeah, so that's the idea, is to have our Public Works Director, Rob, a council member. We still need to allow that process to happen. And then members of the community. So the thinking is, if you can get people regularly meeting every month, all on this topic, then when you get a question, when staff gets a question, it's a really easy way to collect that, as opposed to everything coming through these meetings. It's too much. You need another committee to deal with the nuts and bolts of it.
But there'll still be somebody from Public Works on public safety.
As needed.
Okay,
Yep.
because I think some of those discussions come into play
Sure.
for special events and things like that.
Yep, and they're needed sometimes for finance discussions, they're needed for shade tree sometimes, but you're right, there is overlap there.
It's not covered. Not needed. Why? We are trying to downsize the number of committees. Why are we?
So right now, public safety largely deals with roads, which is an overlap with infrastructure, but our negotiations with Kennet Township on our sewer are in their own space, and doesn't fall under public safety. So the thinking is get all of these, the building piece, right, is largely on its own. We're working with our broker. We should have a common clearing space because that's where the majority of our assets and a big chunk of our spending is. So we need in my opinion, a common space for that.
Any other questions? Then is there a motion to consider to form the Borough Infrastructure Committee? Oops, there's- Mr. Goff?
Question for Kyle. What would this committee be charged to do?
Sure. So just like a public safety committee will review special event permits before they come here. Just like the Shade Tree Committee will discuss shade tree issues before they come here. The Infrastructure Committee would discuss what roads are being prioritized this year. What's the capital replacement schedule for this building? Things like that. Yep.
Any questions from council? Yes. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks.
Use your mics, everyone. Any other questions from council? Then is there a motion to establish the Infrastructure Committee? We're not taking any more. Mr. Goss started something and I'm gonna banish him from other meetings, but this is for council discussion.
I will make the motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any council discussion? I actually like the more of a target focus on infrastructure, so I appreciate this. Anything else from council? All in favor? Aye, opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to the job description, considering the job description for the deputy manager.
Yeah, so Sonny started with us a year ago. As you can see, he's pretty adept at filling spots, and when people miss, he steps right in. He's taking the lead on communications and will be walking us through a workshop tonight. He's done good work on it. This is an opportunity for us to give him a title that better reflects the work that he's doing. This does not include a pay change. It really is a good employee trying to get behind them.
Any questions for Kyle?
What is the staff, like, who's in charge?
Yeah, so he supervises Olga, who's our front desk receptionist. The thinking is that, kind of similar to infrastructure, if we're making him responsible for really great customer service, we need to give him latitude to manage that function, which primarily deals with Olga at the front desk. And recently, we've gotten back a good number. We implemented a secret shopper program, which is essentially a company that comes in with random visits. They make up issues, and it's to check how our customer service is. So it gives us unbiased feedback, and you can see good improvement as of late. So if someone doesn't have that experience, we'd like to know, but it seems to be moving in the right direction.
Any other questions?
So this seat says also oversees the operations of respective borough departments, at the discretion of the borough manager. Does that include directors or not include directors?
So that was one change. I appreciate you reminding me. A change from the last time this came to council. We did exempt management of department directors. So perhaps that's the outdated version, but to be clear, we did exempt that.
Any other questions? And Personnel Committee did discuss this and just making sure that everything was in line, and that was one of them, was managing supervisory or management department heads. Is there a motion to approve the job description for the deputy manager?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would suggest one minor edit in the very first paragraph after the first line, that it include primary areas of responsibility include communications, staff, human relations, and borough operations. Just right up front, so you know what the job is.
That's fine.
So that was motion with that. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is considering the appointment of Lynn Sinclair as a representative of the borough for the Brandywine Valley Scenic Byway Commission's Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad Byway Project.
I will do my best on this
Yes.
one here. Essentially, this is a We are appointing someone from the borough to be our representative in a non-binding group that is seeking funding for basically telling the story of this area as we march towards the 2026 national celebration. So last year, I understand a website was created or at least contracted to begin to tell this story of this particular region. This is a follow-up grant request to go out and basically solicit stories and to put the meat of that into it. So this is considered a low risk, potentially nice reward appointment here for a longtime local resident.
So we, and yes, there is a grant, but all the grant is taken care of by this Brandywine Valley Scenic Byway Commission Vision Partnership Program. So the borough just has a representative since they're associated with the grant process and the project, but there is no commitment from the borough whatsoever. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve Lynn Sinclair as the representative?
I'll move to appoint Lynn Sinclair as representative of the borough of Brandywine Valley Scenic Byway. Right, Tubman, Underground Railroad Highway.
So this day, Antonio's neighbor can hear you. No. All right, there's a motion from Council Member Kakuma. Is there a second? I second. Is there any council discussion?
I think Lynn is a wonderful area person, used to live in the borough, used to be a council person. Her legacy is terrific. She's an asset to our community, that's for sure.
She spends a lot of time celebrating the history of the area and organizing historic museum on North Union Street. So you're free to go. I think she's perfect.
All right, any other discussion from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Revolving loan fund oversight.
This,
Oh, the coordinator.
sure, the borough, and this is probably going back, Kathleen, you might be able to help me on this, how far it goes back, but beyond recent memory, the borough received funds from the state, 2 separate tranches that are revolving loan funds. So what it is, it's essentially a micro fund. If a company wants to repair their facade, they get funds from this committee, they fix their facade, they improve the town, and they pay it back over time, and then use those funds to borrow to the next business. The borough has not been able to meet for this committee for some time because it calls for a staff person, and I forget the exact language. Chris may be able to help on this, but essentially we have to designate a staff person. It used to be a shared employee from the borough and township that doesn't exist anymore. So the thinking is we've been advised it should not be the manager. It should not be the treasurer, who is our finance director, which leaves literally one other person who is our assistant finance director. We believe he can do a great job of essentially corralling this group to restart the committee. So it's a long way of saying designating an existing good employee in order to restart this fund.
So it's not changing the mechanism. It's not changing the fund itself or any guidelines. This is just who's going to be the coordinator. From the
Right. And it's state funds. So we can either make the change in name locally, or we can try to change the fund at the state level. The thinking is it's easier to designate someone at the local level.
Right. Sounds like we're just getting access to the funds again. This way.
Any questions to clarify? If not, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Logan Carlo as the revolving loan fund coordinator.
I will make that motion.
Second,
I'll second.
council discussion? Being none, oh, was there? Sounded like it.
I think it's important that we support the businesses in town, and this is a great opportunity to do it and give them financial support. Hopefully they continue to pay it back and pay it forward.
All right, there's no other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Couple more things, a liquor license transfer.
I will hand this over to Mr. Gerber, but just before, for full disclosure, the name of the LLC is Nino Zavala LLC. One of our council members is Councilmember Zavala. I checked with our council member. It's not a relative, but just for full disclosure, so everyone knows that. Chris?
All right, so you've received this petition for approval to transfer this liquor license. Tonight, you're just really being asked to acknowledge receiving the petition and that you'll be scheduling a hearing to consider the matter on September 11th, 2023. Mr. Crotty is going to give you an outline as to what the protocol is for that hearing. Very ministerial. There's really essentially no standard with regard to that transfer. It happens by law. But essentially tonight, you're just being called upon to accept notice of the petition and the schedule.
Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of the liquor license transfer petition by Nino Zavala LLC and to schedule the hearing?
I will make that motion.
It's 305 West State Street. There's a second. Any council discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Liquor license petition is acknowledged. Bills paid.
Mr. President, the Finance Committee reviewed the bills and is making the recommendation, would offer a motion actually to approve the expenditure of $626,197.49 through the July 20th, 2023 bills.
So there is a motion from Mr. Norris on behalf of the Finance Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I don't think I saw the July 10th and 12th minutes. No. So we will approve those next month and
I would just on that note, like to make a request that we try and button up the time frame under which we get these minutes submitted. It kind of feels like we're falling behind and
Sure.
so just.
Absolutely.
right, that is the end of our action items. So we will move into our workshops.
So the first one here, as I alluded to earlier, is a brief overview of what we're doing in terms of communications. And I think it's been a pretty significant change over the last year. The takeaway here is hopefully some feedback from council and if nothing else, something to ruminate on to give us feedback in the future.
As Kyle stated, we want to just give an overview and update on what the borough's doing to enhance and build out our communications operation. I'm attending a lot of seminars and conferences and trainings. There's certain pillar principles that people are discussing in terms of like what constitutes good communication, and I'll get into a few of them throughout the presentation. One of the best descriptions that I've heard recently that really struck with me is describing good communication as doing the right thing and getting caught, right? So as from an organizational standpoint, a business, a nonprofit, from our perspective as a municipality, it would start with making good policy decisions, good governance policies, decisions, administrative decisions. And then how do we make sure all the different groups and demographics in our community know what the borough's doing? So what is the borough doing to reach and communicate with as many people as possible? What are the tools we're using? Kind of like what's the multi-pronged approach? So we began crafting monthly e-newsletters. Residents can sign up for the e-newsletter on our borough website. You go to the borough website, first thing that pops up is a window like, please sign up for the borough newsletter. Currently, we have approximately, I say, a little over 6,000 people who are subscribed to receive our newsletter, and it does grow daily. It provides kind of general information about what the council's doing, the actions taken, the votes taken, overall community updates, upcoming events, kind of just like a good resource of what's going on in the community. It's usually sent out the week of the council meeting. So as this is Wednesday council meeting, it'll be disseminated tomorrow. And just out of curiosity, how many people received the newsletter or signed up for it? We have we're utilizing the Ready Chesco notification system. It's a county operated system in which there's 5,000 subscribers who receive specific updates and notifications from the borough. This is a really good tool when it comes to sharing a kind of immediate and pressing information about, road closures, water sewer issues, floods, emergencies, things of that nature. Recently, it's been utilized quite a bit. We had the water main break on State Street. Today we had, as was referenced, we had the truck accident with the oil spill. From the time that the borough was made aware of that, it was within 10 minutes, the notification was crafted. It was posted on the website. It was posted on our Facebook page, and it was sent out through the Ready Chesco system within 10 minutes. And the good thing about the Ready Chesco system is that you can receive updates via email or text or both. Facebook, the borough's pretty active on Facebook. We post content. I think it's safe to say on a near daily basis, and currently have 4,500 followers. We're digitizing borough forms, specifically 2 forms in particular for this purpose, is the customer feedback form and the ability to send a message to the mayor and council members. And what's good about the digital forms is that it's not only valuable in terms of tools for us to disseminate information to the public, but it also allows us to receive information for the public. And that's kind of like another second pillar of good communication, is that it's a two-way street. We do need tools to get information out, but we have to allow for tools to have people contact us. And even an example, something as simple as all our employees now and the hyperlinks in their email signatures. There's 2 hyperlinks that, click here to sign up for the borough newsletter and click here to fill out the customer service form. So even with every email interaction with a business, a resident, a vendor, there's an opportunity for people to sign up to get information from us, and an opportunity for them to share information with us. We're developing a customized Kennett Square app. It'll be an app that you can download on your smartphone, just like any other app, and it'll allow residents to access all borough information, our digital forms, report service requests. So, my traffic light's out, stop sign is knocked over, my garbage wasn't picked up, any type of service request can be submitted through the app. The good thing about the software too is you don't have to download the app to be able to access all those tools. You can also access all those things on the website also. So if you don't like apps and you just feel more comfortable on the website, you can do that also. And it's scheduled to be unveiled sometime this fall. So kind of as a recap, so we got, the e-newsletters, Ready, notification system, Facebook, digital forms. That's great for people who are comfortable with that technology, who are used to using it. But we do have residents who, don't use apps or Facebook, or don't like to check their email very often, or don't even own a computer. So what are we doing to reach them? And so we've begun the process of having 2 annual mailers. One is in the form of a mid-year report. It provides updates as to what the borough's accomplished kind of at the halfway point of the year, and kind of important dates for them to know for the remainder of the year. I believe Mr. Snyder said he asked about the budget. So this was the mailer that went out, and it has the important dates, So the capital improvement plan was, July 12th last month. The budget's going to be done on October 4th. So it gives residents kind of the heads up at the halfway point of the year. Here are some of the things that are coming down the pike to kind of put on your radar. And this was mailed to all residents in June. So if you did not get it, or someone didn't get it, please let me know, as we want to make sure we got the mailing route correct. We're also going to be doing an end of year report, which will provide an overview of the year as a whole and share pertinent information that residents need to know going into the new year. Kind of hitting that theme of really trying to incorporate good pillar principles of communication. Another important one is building partnerships, and we've built a great working relationship with Kennett Neighbors Magazine. They published our mid-year report for the borough in their July issue, which is here, and they've also committed to printing our end-of-year report in their December issue. So, like I said, if you don't use apps and Facebook and websites, and it's just not your thing, as long as you have a mailing address in the borough, you'll receive information from us at least twice a year. So who or what are we missing? In March, we had strategic planning sessions with residents, community stakeholders, business leaders and council members. And based on the feedback we got from that interaction and engagement with the community, a roadmap document was crafted and was ultimately ratified by the council on June 7th. One of the weaknesses identified in that exchange with the community was that we need to do more to engage and integrate our Hispanic community. So like any well-run organization, you take your weaknesses seriously and you work to improve on them. So since June, which is when the council ratified the roadmap document, all borough newsletters have been bilingual in English and Spanish. The mailer, the media report was printed in English and Spanish, double-sided, same content on each side, just one in English, one in Spanish. And then the end of year report will also be done in English and Spanish when that's mailed out as well. So it's important that we communicate with all members of our community, old and young. Juan had mentioned that, you know, Facebook's good, but it's kind of like the old young person's preference of social media. I guess maybe I'm old young. I don't know. But he suggested that kind of Instagram is the more younger friendly means of communication. So once we get all our operations kind of up and running where we want them, maybe we look into, creating a borough Instagram account again, to try to young, old, English speaking, Spanish speaking. We have an obligation to try to reach and communicate with all members of it. One other thing I just want to mention quick is that if you don't want to sign up for like the newsletter and you don't want to get kind of blasted with ready Chesco notifications every time there's a road closure, and you kind of just want to obtain information at your own leisure on your own terms, essentially everything we post, whether it's on Facebook, our ready Chesco notifications, our newsletters, our mid report, is on our website under the Borough News tab. And you can kind of go back and you can kind of check it out whenever you want. And just kind of get a sense of like, what's going on in the borough on your own terms, in your own time frame, if you don't want to necessarily sign up for all the other things that we think that's.
Any questions for Sunny? Nice job. And I just one thing that I think might be helpful, the important dates. I think if we, just so they're not stuck in the text as much, maybe just calling them out. So important dates in UC, the budget meetings, the this, I think that might be a good idea.
That word count was hard.
What's that?
The first version of this was quadruple.
Yeah.
And no, but I agree. It is something we want to highlight.
Looking forward, I just think that that's
I agree. No,
a good idea.
yeah. Kyle and I had a lot of conversations like, we don't want to cut that. We don't want to cut, but this is, but we had to make it fit, right? So.
I think the improvement in communications are very impressive, and I know you're leading that. Thank you. It's great to see it come out. I look forward to the day when folks say, stop, we don't want to know as much. We're a long way from there.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, but it's great. Two questions, I guess. One is the website itself. In my opinion, it leaves an awful lot to be desired. You talked about in the fall, is that a specific plan for the website or is that a 24 thing?
That's for the app. The website would be a potential 24 project or initiative. The good thing is that what the app essentially does is a one-stop shop, everything kind of square but it directs you to the website. So the good thing about it is that they're very interconnected. So, if you want to sign up for Borough News, it's going to take you to the website. If you need a form or a permit, or you have a question about like, when's the leaf pickup schedule, it drives you to the website. That's kind of the point of it outside of the service request. So we would probably have a vested interest in really maybe looking to update our website for 24.
I think we actually have some, correct me, Joel, some capital money in the 24 draft budget for website improvement. So if it gets through. And then my last question is one of the critiques that I have heard is our responsiveness. You call into the borough and you need help, or how do I get this or where to get that? And sometimes it falls into this void. Just a general mailbox sort of a feel. Are we doing anything, or what are we doing to improve that? How do folks know that they've been heard, they get an answer, and there's some follow-up?
The app will be the best tool for that, because the more people that will if they use the app, we then, it's all documented, we can track it. So it will come, let's say it comes to me, and it gets siphoned by department. So if someone has a codes issue, they fill in their codes issue, it gets routed directly to the department. And then you can track like, okay, how come this is sitting in someone's, box for 2 days or 3 days? Like it makes it where you can track all of the inquiries that come into it. So we're going to work with like Olga, for example, you get a call for like a, question, plug it into the system, because then we can track every single inquiry that comes into Borough Hall, and we can have an account and report saying this was responded to, this issue was addressed on this date. And then we can track like how are our response times, like why is it taking, 20 days to respond to like a stop sign or something.
So for us dinosaurs, as one would say, so who's responsible to answer that general mailbox? Olga?
The email address would come to me.
You?
And then if someone wanted to use the email address, it would come to me, and then I would plug it into the system to ensure that when it goes to the proper department and the proper person, and then we can track it from there and stay on top of.
And how about the phone? Who gets?
I'll be working with Olga.
Okay.
That's one of our big projects that we're working on together, and she's doing a great job.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sonny. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Rob.
This is gonna be short and sweet. So, John, you'll be happy. So since Aqua took over New Gardens sewer treatment plant, we've been under a contractual agreement with them, but it's been temporary contracts. We're looking for one that goes a little further, goes out to 2026. And so we've been talking, Public Works has been meeting with Aqua representatives and going over things and bringing it back to the committee as to what we can do and to make things better for the borough. So under the current agreement, the allotted 100,000 gallons a day capacity for pre-treated influent. Billable flows begin at 1,000 gallons, 983,000. That's what everybody else pays. The quality of the influent is actually governed by Municipal Industrial Pretreatment Program. Basically, they can't send us raw sewer. It has to be pre-treated to specific amounts of organics and other chemicals that are governed by the MIP program. So they are allowed, basically they're allowed to give us 1/3 of what a regular household would give on quality. Because I see the face. Typically a residential is 350 parts per million organic, whereas the MIP takes it down to 250. Now, they have no way of separating theirs, so we usually end up getting almost a quality that we could put in the crib. So, so right now, no flows have been received from Aqua for about 8 months. And that means no revenue has been received from Aqua for 8 months, even though we have capacity, 100,000 gallons, and we're not getting any money for it. So we have tied up capacity. In the proposed agreement, the allotment decreases to 70,000 gallons per day capacity of pre-treated influent. Now, that says that we have 30,000 gallons coming back to us. No, we don't, because remember, it's covered by a MIP. So the quality of the amount of organics that are in it actually decreases the amount. So we're talking probably about 20,000 gallons of capacity that would come back to us. And we are establishing a base charge of $5,727.17 a month. That's to cover any fixed costs. So if they don't send us any sewer, they're still going to pay us $5,727.17 a month. So instead of like this past 8 months, we've got nothing. This way we're actually getting some contribution to fixed costs at the plant. The charge of the flows above that, above 19,178 are then charged at $9.83 because with them paying $5,727, that's like a break point on their flow. And you'll see it on the chart. So no flows, Aqua still pays over $17,000 a quarter. And then above 19,000, we're billing at 1,000 or 983 1,000, like I said. And so capacity has been reduced and we're getting a base charge. So the chart, if you can see the dotted line starting over at the y-axis, it's setting just above 5,000. That's where their base is. That's where they're going to pay us, even if they don't send us flow, they're going to pay us. And then if you look at the black dotted line that starts at 0, that's the way it was before. So if they didn't send us flow, we were sitting at 0. If they only sent us 10,000, we were only sitting at $2,500. So setting this base, we cover all fixed costs that they would be responsible for, whether they send us flow or not. And then from there, it goes over to the baseline, the diagonal line there, and intersects and continues on. So we are in a win position. We can't go back. They're under a contract. They're under a contract right now. That's the reason we're talking about this. No, they haven't. So we got 0. They haven't sent us flow. Yep, we got 0. But with this, we will continue to get paid. Yep. Yep. So that's it. Any questions?
So, Rob, I just propose settlement, or agreement. So we're not looking at an agreement right now to vote on.
No.
What direction do we need to provide, or was this just here's what?
Just wanted to let you know where we're at with it. Actually, it's over to Aqua right now. They're reviewing it, and then they'll get back with us. But I've gotten a verbal agreement from them on this that they are okay with it. So it's just going up their chain and chain of command, and they'll let us know.
Any questions for Rob?
No questions, but thank you for negotiating this very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You happy, Jeff?
All right, we've got planning commission and some housing, proposed housing.
Sure. So I'll open this up. I failed to mention earlier tonight that each of these workshop items is either directly or indirectly related to a strategic priority brought up by council either this year or last year. So stabilizing our infrastructure was the last one. Communications, quality of life is the pool lease. One of our big priorities was addressing the increasingly small amount of affordable and attainable housing in the borough. So we charged our planning commission with giving us some ideas. Borough staff also did some work on coming up with some potential options. Our roles as staff and planning commission is to give council some options that we've researched and hopefully will be helpful. Then we're looking tonight for council to listen, take it in. If you're able to give some direction. But, again, we're here to do the homework for council. It's been a stated priority, so we're trying to help you in that process. So I'll turn it over to Luke, who's a member of our planning commission, to go through a brief presentation that the planning commission put together.
Thanks, Kyle. Andy Froning would have liked to been here to give this presentation and would have on Monday, so I'm pinch hitting for him. The conversation within the planning commission, we've been talking about the issue of housing, and you'll see in your packets, and for those in the public, I've left copies of the letter that the planning commission sent to Borough Council inviting council to consider 3 policies that we would believe would be consequential in improving housing affordability in the borough. Just to quickly mention them, one of them is more fulsomely embracing accessory dwelling units within the borough. A second is reforming minimum parking mandates. And the third is taking some steps toward embracing missing middle housing. Happy to answer questions about those policies if you have them. I'm going to sort of start this discussion really by kind of centering the discussion in the challenges that we see. These are challenges that are not likely unfamiliar to you. I also want to recognize that a number of people have come to the meeting today specifically to emphasize the importance of, I would say, urgent action in the direction of policies that promote affordability. I'll just invite, if that description fits you, if you came tonight because of the discussion on affordable housing, can you just raise your hands? Great, thank you. In addition, a number of groups submitted letters of support advocating for the types of policies set forth in the Planning Commission letter. Those included the Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce, the newly formed Southern Chester County Council on Housing Affordability. I'll show you some names associated with that as we take a brief glimpse at highlights of that letter. Some of the larger employers in the area, the leaders of those employers in the Kennett area that employ hundreds of people, if not thousands. And also the chair of ACOLA submitted a letter as well. So at the end, I'll just share a couple of highlights from those letters. So really the Planning Commission's goal is to spark a conversation about housing policies in light of the evident challenges. Our letter embraces very kind of specific and concrete opportunities for making progress in this area. And, it's worth saying that there's no silver bullet. This is a complex challenge. And it's a challenge where progress can be made, but it's a difficult issue as well. Kyle's letter invites a different kind of thinking. So ours is specific policies. Kyle's letter invites you to begin a process. And I think both of these approaches are worth following. I don't think it's a choice between one or the other. They don't compete with each other. I think both of them are important. And I think Kyle's is important because it's a robust process and it's a comprehensive process that he's inviting us to consider. And I think the value of going through a process like that is that you're really looking at all of the issues. I think it's also worth pursuing some concrete action steps in parallel. I don't think we need to get through the end of the journey to start making progress on it. So I'm going to start by highlighting some of the housing challenges, again, which I think you know well. And for starters here, I think many of us have heard that, and realtors have told us that properties are receiving multiple offers in the borough, many at above asking price. Of course, this is good news for sellers, but it's difficult for those who are trying to get on the housing ladder. The demand for housing not only drives up costs for buyers, but it also provides incentives for developers to build multiple housing units on single lots. And so this naturally just sort of creates a tension point that any borough has to navigate. How do we meet the need for more affordable housing while at the same time sort of balancing density considerations? What's sort of too hot, too cold, not enough? And I think this is a question of balance that those engaged in this discussion will have to weigh. The borough letter presumes that the Borough Council's opportunity to impact housing prices starts with zoning. So zoning rules are something within your power to control. There are issues that that you can address in that area, and this really sets the stage for private development that avails itself of the zoning rules that can improve affordability. It's not in our ability to forecast the continued demand for housing in specific numbers, but it's not unreasonable to just sort of imagine what kind of growth the borough could see. Even just extrapolating on the development that's happening, we have a population of about 6,000. We have, I think it's 175 units or so being built right now on State Street. So it's not hard to imagine that over a 5 or 10 year period, you could see on the order of 1,000 or 2,000 persons added to our population over the course of time. Given the limited geographic space within the borough, this would result in higher density, meaning more apartments, townhomes, accessory dwelling units. And so this is, again, I think part of the tension that you have to manage as a borough council. There's competition for a limited stock of housing that's really driving up costs. This is a basic supply and demand issue. It's a function of Kennett Square and Chester County's attractiveness, which translates to demand. Given the limited supply of housing, it drives up prices. New rental stock is really coming on at upper price points. State Street lofts are Class A rentals. An existing rental stock has seen rental prices increase with turnover in occupants. Anecdotally, information from a variety of first-person discussions that there's overcrowding in some places around the borough as well. And when I say overcrowding, what I mean by that is within a given unit, you have multiple people, which can be a safety concern. So there's a housing shortage, and that housing shortage is at all income levels, affecting all ages and all family sizes. And so the borough's housing policy should address housing at every price point. If we look at an example here, 2020 census tells us that median family income level in Kennett Square was $76,000. Housing experts tell us that at that income level, a family can afford a house selling at $260,000. A recent review of home prices in the borough suggests that there was no single family home selling for less than $320,000. So this, again, we know this as those who live in the borough. So these are points for council, for legal counsel, for the planning commission and borough staff to consider, and really for residents to understand. I think Kyle will speak here in a moment to his sense of the process that should unfold from here. And the planning commission's letter is really predicated on a view that zoning policy is the principal means for local government to affect affordability. So you have received some preliminary communications from staff and from Planning Commission to invite thoughts on different approaches for addressing housing challenges. Our situation is not a unique one. Communities around Chester County and the state and the country are facing similar challenges. The proposals that Planning Commission has put in front of you draw on knowledge learned in other places about how you address these kinds of problems. I'm happy to send articles along those lines if you'd like to dig in more. These aren't silver bullet solutions, but they would lay a foundation for progress in this area. I want to just briefly highlight the support letters that have come in. If you could page forward, Sunny. Here's just an excerpt from the Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce letter. Again, the full letter you can grab at the table there. But it focuses on the challenge that employers have of attracting and retaining employees and highlights this as a constraint on business growth. And so it says, we understand Borough Council has indicated it is a priority to advance policies that would improve affordability within the borough for people at all price points. Policies including those that would further the use of accessory dwelling units, reduce or eliminate minimum parking requirements, and expand missing middle housing are widely understood to improve affordability. Second letter here from the Southern Chester County Council on Housing Affordability. And I've put the names of those who signed the letter because this is a relatively new group. So it just gives you a sense. These are people who are very interested in seeing the housing affordability challenge in our area addressed, not necessarily as employers. Many of them work for nonprofits or just concerned community members. Its mission is to promote housing stability, affordability, and accessibility for everyone who lives and works in Southern Chester County. And, just again, a brief excerpt. We applaud Kennett Square Borough's Planning Commission's recent letter to you outlining concrete changes to the borough zoning code. Another letter that you will have received was from large employers in the area. So these are companies, you'll recognize the names, who employ hundreds of people in the Kennett area. Quote from the letter, a common concern amongst us is the limited supply and high price of housing for existing and prospective employees. We urge the borough to adopt a range of policies that will contribute to easing housing costs by increasing the supply of non-luxury housing. So again, these are folks who they'd like to grow, but it's really hard to find a place to live for young and new workers trying to move to the area. And lastly, Jorge Duccini, as chair of ACOLA, submitted a letter that expressed support for the Planning Commission letter and emphasized the importance of coordination with the township. Housing is not just a borough issue, it's a regional issue, and he sought to draw attention to that concern as well. So with that, Kyle, why don't I turn it back to you? And if you want to sort of frame up how this discussion should unfold.
Sure. Thank you, Luke. I think on behalf of all of us, just to thank you to all of our various community organizations that have put time and effort into this, trying to be a resource for council. Whether any of these policies are adopted or not, we appreciate that everyone has an interest in something that we've identified as a priority. This is a workshop session, it's not a voting session. So I guess the question here is, is there any feedback on this from council, or any thoughts or discussion in general? Again, not a voting session, but just looking to get some direction at some point to help in this process.
We don't regulate pricing of apartments or homes as Borough Council. So in creating more units in the area, it's a struggle between what the market bears is what people charge. Council can't suddenly say you can only charge this much for an apartment without input from the people who privately and publicly own the building, their choice on how they're priced. How does council work within those constraints?
I'll apologize for parading my economics minor from Penn State. But price is a function of supply and demand. So when you increase supply, that lowers price.
We are 1 square mile, mostly very densely populated currently. Everybody wants to live here. If you looked at the last 3 years, a spike in cost of trying to buy a house. Again, we don't regulate that. Market does. So from the housing that we're allowed to develop, and we tried to get them to do affordable housing within the Burger Apartments, and that didn't work out. I was on council. For why? you know, the places that we've allowed housing to happen within town, we did not get those results. And then how do you keep it there? That's the first group of people. Or live there.
Yeah, so the letter, yeah, it's a good point. And I think what you're wrestling with is this tension of like, can we increase supply? And, you know, there's a tension there with the character of the town. Do we like the character of the town that results from that sort of more dense form of housing that we've invited? You know, the proposals that we have suggested, again, these are widely understood proposals to create rent compression. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to sort of convert it into affordable housing, but it will increase the supply of non-luxury housing in the borough. And we can talk about those policies if you'd like to speak about any of them individually. It's hard to speak at a high level.
This could be a basic question, but I'm willing to throw it out there. Is there an industry definition of what affordable housing means? Like, what is that? Are we searching for something? Are we trying to solve a problem that doesn't even have a definition at this point?
Yeah, so the metric that people look at is area median income. And generally, when people talk about housing affordability, they're looking at a person's income as a percentage of the area median income. So I am not a technical expert on this, but I have interacted with some of them, and they might correct me if I get this slightly wrong. But generally, you're talking about affordable housing ranging in the area of, say, 30 to 60% of area median income. That area median income varies depending on the number of people in a family. So, and then, you know, again, my question is it, Bert, I'll ask you, is it 30 to 60% or 30 to 80% would be affordable?
I'm not sure where that exists.
27% of the households in Chester County are paying more than 30%. And our goal is to try to make sure that that doesn't happen in the greater Kansas area. We also recognize that you guys don't have the land.
Right, right.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, and this is looking at both, you know, quote unquote affordable housing, but also attainable housing, which would be more like 80 to 120% of area median income. And so the idea is, you know, anyone in that spectrum is going to struggle to get housing in Kennett Square, right? And so we're not looking to say this is just for people looking for affordable or just for people looking for attainable. These are policies that would help lower the cost of housing across the board.
How can we help in reducing rent for people who pay rent? Because rent, I have people who've been reaching out to me that they've been paying too much of rent and their rents keep going up every month. How can we stop that from being too much excessive payment?
Yeah, this is a very difficult issue to address in the short term, right? And so all of the proposals we put in front of you are proposals that attempt to make progress on this issue over a long period of time. You know, and I think, to be frank, you know, if we implement all of these policies, 10 years from now, we'll still be talking about housing affordability challenges. So this is an area where you can make progress, but it's not something that can be, I think, fully solved. It's a big challenge.
You're asking the council to endorse the planning commission to look into these, to come back to the council with your recommendations as a planning commission.
Yeah, good question. You know, the letter that you've received is endorsed by 7 out of 7 members of your planning commission. So these are policies that your planning commission is telling you, these are within your control. They're not within our control. But what you have the ability to do is say, you know what, we are interested in these policies. We do think they'll contribute to affordability. And we would like you to sort of work on this and come back to us and serve up proposals that would enact these in the details. You would have the ultimate approval over those detailed policies, but we've given you a 2-page letter, I think, and we would come back with something more in the details. Yeah, so the public.
There are people with that's cool. That first time home, that young couple. And I don't hear that in your speech. And accessory dwelling units are not the answer. That complex density, it causes havoc for the forest park and everybody else. So this not being seen right. Parking shouldn't be a whole bunch of parking because the residential unit is going to accommodate housing. It's not going to accommodate the crowd. You got homes on Linden Street, $25 for each side. You go and get the horses already out the park in the Borough County Square. It's gone. The mountain sharks come in, they bought everything. And now they're looking at people.
Charlotte, let's keep this constructive. We got a good conversation going here. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep this positive. We're going to keep this positive right now. Thank you. Nick, did you have something to say? Yeah. Charlotte, please.
Yeah, good points, Nick. And yeah, I think the issue of Airbnbs has come up in discussion. And it's something that I would support some form of regulation around Airbnbs. I look out my door and I can count 4 of them within eye distance. And I think there's room for it in the borough, but I wouldn't want to see that be 8, because it degrades the experience of community if you don't have neighbors, right? So I think that's something that's worth looking at. It's not something that we're actively engaging in as a planning commission, but I think that's, again, something that the Borough Council could invite us to consider.
When Terry was here, that was an active conversation we were having, and she was looking into a structure where the Airbnbs, she was pinpointing those, and we were looking into some changes to how those would be monitored and inspected and paid for. So that is on the agenda, and that's been looked at.
John, do you have a question? Hold on. Oh, hold on.
We do just generally, we do keep a general track of Airbnbs because we want to inspect them for safety. So that what Kathleen is talking about is there should be rather should there be a hotel occupancy fee on it and treat it like a hotel? But at least from a safety perspective, we are keeping tabs on them.
But Chesapeake County is one of the highest cost of living places in Pennsylvania. Very expensive to live here. Now, before and raised here, you started low. My father worked in this building as a single diamond. I think he ever made more than $30,000 in his life. Now it's $7,000. My brother sold that house recently for $300,000. You know, it's a two-bedroom house. And the people who got letters from me, nothing. They're usually businesses who want employees, so they live in gated communities, $1 million house. They don't care. So I don't care about that. Some of the other people like to care less. There's nobody who's interested in helping. Where are these big business leaders helping? I mean, you can't put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. And we're a 5-pound bag. I learned that when I was a kid. You can't put 10, where are you gonna put all these people? We got roads from 1855 that were designed for about 5,200 people. With all that view. That was the carriages, carriage house in the north. Our roads can't handle us, we can't expand them. You put 100,000 people in this town, it's 2,000 people. You didn't have a traffic jam.
So John, just so we know here, because we can tell the questions, the concerns, so many facets of this issue. This was a first attempt from the Planning Commission to come back with a couple ideas. And hold on, John, there are so many things that are out of our control. One of the things that is in our control is to look at zoning policies, regulations, what we could have some control over. So this is a first stab at that. Let's keep understanding that everything that everyone has said tonight is right. That can we just take a look at the direction we've gotten from the Planning Commission to consider some of these zoning changes? Let's just keep it here. Hold on, John.
Can I finish?
Yeah,
'Cause I got
yeah.
cut off before. I mean, I strongly think that we owe the folks in the borough who least can afford to live here the opportunity to take a look at how to help improve affordability in the borough across all those groups of folks that need a place to live.
Yep.
They're the ones that are the most vulnerable. We owe, in my opinion, we owe them a look to see how we can make certain properties in the borough more affordable than they are right now. And that's not a lot. As we all know, it's a very desirable, very expensive place. And when you sell your home, you want top dollar usually, and that's what everyone does. But we owe those folks. It was our second highest priority last year when we sat down and we said, what's the most important thing we can do as a council? It's get our financial house in order. And number two was do something about affordability. The Planning Commission unanimously came to us and said, hey, guys, we have some ideas. I would absolutely endorse you guys going away to take a look. That doesn't mean it's a slam dunk, because there's a lot of issues that come up with this, just like we're starting to touch on the very bare minimum of them tonight. But I would absolutely endorse that. And I'd add one more to the list that I didn't see on there. It's how to encourage or incentivize developers to include some support, financial. I know State College has a fee in lieu of. If you're going to put up a new property, you have to either pay a fee in lieu of, or a certain number of units have to be affordable. I mean, I think we've got just a couple of tiny opportunities to still do that thing in the borough. The bureaucracy of it, I know, is a pain in the neck, but we absolutely have to take a look at some of the things that the Planning Commission is recommending.
I'm not saying what the problem is, John. I'm not saying what the problem is. It's point taken.
It's about population, it's not about zoning.
Yep.
You don't have that power. Or you won't be here very long.
Mr. Scout, do you have a question or are you just scratching your head? I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged you. I saw a little thing. Any? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's the big questions like how does the planning commission see accessory dwelling units regulations being changed, making more affordable housing available?
Mhm. By increasing the supply of units. And these are not, I mean, you think about what the a price of a unit is in the borough right now. The newest apartments that are coming into the borough are $2,400.
So why would a private homeowner who's putting in an accessory dwelling unit with maybe 2 units in it, if you're saving zoning, I'm assuming you want taller. 'Cause right now, you're limited to quarter.
Yeah, they're 15 feet high. So yeah, the suggestion in our letter is to allow them to be 2 stories. Those units would probably price at something closer to, say, $1,500 a month, give or take. So those are more affordable units than you're getting in the borough from private developers. And the reason that they're more affordable is that the land is already paid for. You know, you don't have to contemplate that in the price, and also because they're smaller typically.
Assuming that the building owner or the property owner is looking at creating affordable housing and not just trying to get the most bang for the buck.
No, I think they're more affordable because they're smaller. You know, 1,500 is more affordable than 2,400, and that's just pricing it at market rates.
That actually create the market where we're looking for, that would be your single and newly graduated couples, not necessarily your families. So we're not really creating
That's true. Yeah,
space for that.
that's not a solution that addresses every problem. It's you know, it's vegetables on a on the plate, but there are other things that need to be done as well.
But how does minimizing our parking requirements play into that? Because you're creating more density in areas that already have parking issues. I'm assuming these are mostly the houses that have alleyways to access. So we're in the densest part of town. So how does the leasing parking requirement?
Well, those units won't get built without. I mean, you're right that you're queuing into a trade-off. You know, and that trade-off is a trade-off between, do I want more units that will be more affordable at a cost, and that cost being sort of parking is one of those impacts, but you won't get those built without relaxing parking requirements, because at this point, in order to have any unit in the borough, new unit, you have to deliver 2 parking spaces to have that unit built. So that is a constraint that not many people can satisfy. Beyond that, you don't typically have 2 cars in the size of units that go with accessory dwelling units.
Like replacing what would be parking, where there would be parking in the back.
I think there are a lot of different types of ADUs. I don't know, Sunny, if you want to just page through, I put an appendix slide there. I mean, so go back one. This is from the American Planning Association, how they define ADUs, just to give a visual of what are we talking about here. Yeah, I think the definition is expansive. I think the ones we're most familiar with here in the borough, it might be, a separate detached unit behind the primary unit. And we have lots of those in the borough already.
Yeah, the problem with that is, when you bring up Airbnb and problem of retaining a home if you're a new homeowner and you've got limited funds, you're up against the cash offers that are coming in, gobbling up our inventory. A lot of times those are not the homeowner that's going to live there. They're going to turn around and rent it out. So where was I going? My brain was going somewhere.
You're heading in the right direction.
I was heading in the right direction. So therefore, like, how does that stop the market from just exploding even further with more people buying our property to create denser housing? And then we're losing our community because it's more rentals and less homeowners.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're painting a scenario for how a particular situation could unfold.
We're watching it right now.
Yeah. And it is. I don't dispute that that's a realistic scenario for a particular property. There are other scenarios as well that are, add to the supply of housing at lower price points.
So. You had more.
Oh, I got plenty, but you can stop.
Well, I was just gonna say, there is a lot more questions to be had here. And I do want to bring tonight's to a close because. Give me a suggestion, John.
All you gotta do is put that on the list for Kenner Township. You gotta put out affordable housing or you don't get sewer. There's where your power is, right there. And they got what, 30% of the.
We will note that, John.
Okay, put it on the list.
So we have the and again, we're not voting on anything, but we do have some research and a recommendation from the entire planning commission. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to, let's see how this translates into maybe some policies that or zoning that work or some changes. So I wouldn't want to say halt everything. So.
I'm not saying that
Yep.
either. It's just that it's a big,
Yeah.
big thoughtful process, and we haven't even touched on middle housing, which I don't know if it exists in this area at all.
If you want to, Sonny, go to the third one more or two more. Yeah, so just, this term missing middle housing is not one that's familiar to everyone. But this just gives you a visual. And I think the beauty of missing middle housing, what are we talking about? We're talking about duplexes, fourplexes, cottage courts, townhouses. So these are forms of building that you already see in the borough that allow you to take an increment of incremental steps toward density without inviting large apartment buildings.
Ms. Samuel, you have a question?
For seniors and families, and that's working with private equity companies that are really saying we want to invest in affordable housing because they're having the highest gross income. Housing in Pennsylvania, and we get their 61%, but the average to apartment here is 1,400. What is spread over the house? So that would be about 40% income. So just wondering for future development, can you really try to partner with developers or incentivize them to improve affordable units? Like
If we put in place the right policies
right.
to do that, we would have that ability, yes. And that's really what the planning commission is talking about, is what are the policies that we can put in place that we have the authority to change that, to give some affordability. Listen, there's 100 issues and we're just at the tip of this conversation. The question is really, do we want the planning commission to move forward with our second highest priority, or do we tell them no?
Anything else from council?
Yep.
I mean, is there enough direction? You've heard a lot of opinions and views and concerns, but at the same time, I think there's direction to keep looking, see what can happen.
So is the direction to suggest policies in the details that would, if approved by this council, enact the types of policies that we've recommended to you? Focused on zoning?
Of course we will. This is direction to one of our committees, which is also a public committee. You can go to any planning commission, and then we would discuss it here, just like we do in every single meeting. And I will ask, since there are two members of the press here tonight, please do not quote anyone saying that we are telling Kennett Township that in order to get sewer, we need to do this. So that is not a quote from anyone yet. Thank you, Mr. Zubrod. Thank you. All right, we still have one item left.
Yeah.
The
so
poll.
This should be this should be a fairly quick.
Ms. Watson, I am going to ask that just, and I know you don't like to be called out, but I am going to ask you to quit commenting on every single thing that's said. And I will, Chief, if you can just maybe if you can talk to her, that would be great. But I do not want this to be any more disruptive than it needs to be. Thank you. All right, Kyle.
Given the hour, I think everyone understands what the challenge is with our pool. It's a pool that we own, we lease to the YMCA. They are charging $10 per person per visit. That's been deemed high by the council. So what struck me is that we could really use some affirmative direction from council on what the next step is. So as I mentioned earlier, is that negotiating more with the YMCA? Is that putting this out to proposals to the community? Is that trying to do it in-house? Or it can be a combination of them. It's just we need direction from the council in order to take that next step as staff.
Thoughts from council. We've heard a lot of this from the public tonight, and
I've looked hard at the agreement a couple of times. There's a lot of holes in the agreement that I think we certainly have the ability to negotiate around. I mean, I'd love to see Nick and Mike and that small group of folks come back to the council to say, hey, this is what we think a community pool means. I'd prefer the Y run it if they can run it like they used to as a real community pool that anyone can go to. I understand they have swimming lessons and classes and stuff, that's fine. But when folks are out of school, not working on the weekends, I didn't realize the kiddie pool was defunct. That's wrong. I think we get serious with the Y and say you either bring it back to a community pool or the borough will investigate taking it back as we have the right to.
I think we have to negotiate with them sooner than later on this, and that a commitment has to be made in a very, very timely manner so that we have the time to turn this over to a private entity or ourselves if needed. It's absolutely abhorrent that they don't have the kiddie pool open. They've done that 2 years in a row now. Those were the specific things we asked from them. $10 a person is insane for most families. Mike's family is a family of four. Five. I forgot about the little guy. That's $50 just to go to the pool for one day. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm certainly not opposed to basically putting the Y on notice saying like we're gonna back out of the lease, and if you want to keep running it, prove it to us by getting some new terms.
Yeah, I'm 100% behind you on that. I think it's really important that we take it back. Make sure they pony up the contract for the $10 consulting.
So it seems like there's clear direction here. I'll likely share this meeting, which is public, the sentiments you've all shared.
Yep.
And go back to negotiate it and probably bring a council member along. Looks like Councilmember Cacknell.
I just had another brilliant idea. Sorry. I think borough residents should have a very small flat fee, like $10 to walk in the door. And because the pool is used by the community at large, anybody outside the borough can pay a different fee.
And are you saying per season? $10?
Well, even, maybe, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
totally
Just
down.
clarifying.
Just clarifying.
Yes.
But you know,
I know before we voted to appoint, junior council person to FOIA, he had some thoughts on the why. Did you want to share anything tonight?
If we could start running numbers to see how much it would cost if we can run it in-house, that could be a possibility. Because from what I'm getting, it seems that the YMCA doesn't want to get rid of the pool. And I had a constituent come up to me saying that on Saturday, they didn't put chairs for the public when it was open for the public those 2 days. They took the chairs out
Mhm.
and they didn't have any chairs at the pool area. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems the YMCA is willing to fight us on this one.
And
Well, oh, go ahead.
plus, if we take it back, we can charge them a good penny to hold their summer camps there.
Well, I just know too that, yes, being more of an optimist, I thought we might get to a better place as the summer panned out. And I had two people who had gone this past weekend basically refer to what it looked like as a prison because of the gates that were up and the pools that were closed. So I definitely think we need to take a little bit different direction than just hope it's going to get better.
From what I'm getting, it seems that all the constituents want us to take back the pool.
Yep.
Am I right? I think it's just a good option that we take it back and we start running numbers to see if we can afford to take it back. And I hope if we were to take it back, we would have all the community help us out in really taking good care of this pool.
Thank you.
Supply is not a nonprofit. As it is in the US. They make so much money. They give scholarships. Find out how much why gives a scholarship to you. Not supply why, the system. Because that was one of my problems when I was going was they didn't take care of the people in the borough and the surrounding area. It's become a good place for here. So, and that's what they basically do on the pool.
We're all on the same page here, John. Yep. All right. Thank you, council. I think there's direction.
Yep.
That is the end of all our items. Anything else from council?
We owe John a follow-up on the zoning hearing board concerns that he brought up last month or the month
Yep.
before that. We owe him that.
Yep. All right. Anything else? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Sir.
What? What? Thank you.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
no, that's fine, because I think I went.
We don't even need to. We won't even need anybody. I know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, we've already brought, well,
Right,
right, yep.
right. Yeah, I don't.
Oh, okay, okay.
I agree with you. No, I don't think we need it at this point, because when they hear 7 council people agree, or well, 5 tonight,